Cultic, a game made by Jason Smith, published by 3D Realms, is an FPS that harbors back to old school shooters where it's just you, your weapon wheel, and a whole bunch of targets to let loose on. This game came out on October 22nd, 2022, and I remember seeing the trailer for it and just loved the look of the gameplay, the visual style, the use of colors, and the music. I'm a sucker for unique visual style, so this was right up my alley. I remember playing it that weekend and streaming it and just having a blast with the game. For this video, I wish to break down why I believe it's a great game and why it works. Also, all the footage taken was from my streams at twitch.tv/cypherrng. Shameless plug, it ain't me! Now, without further ado, here is my video on Cultic and why it works. As mentioned earlier, Cultic is an old school FPS shooter and does just about everything you'd expect from it. Weapon wheels, a variety of enemies. I actually know. He's a proper ankle biter. And levels that is basically a playground for the player. The controls for the game feel tight, and I absolutely adore the feedback from the weapons firing. To blowing off enemy heads, and setting off explosives near groups of enemies. I also enjoy the light physics in this game. Your character is able to kick and slide, which means you can use this with enemies, objects of interest, even your own TNTs. Movement in this game is also very tight, and having the sprint be instant full speed instead of a build up to full speed in games like Destiny, for example, is something I've always preferred in games like this. One of the big things I love about this game is that it doesn't feel like one of those super shotgun solves all problems kind of game, but instead each weapon has a very strong point, and always switching up your weapons depending on the enemy type is much more wise than simply sticking to one gun. The game enforces this mindset with certain levels, which I will get into much later. For the weapons, we have the pistol for dealing with small fries, lever action rifle or sniper for enemies much further away. Got him. Shotgun or SMG if they end up coming close to me. A grenade launcher. And finally, the flamethrower for the big fellas, because damn, this thing shreds. There we go. Or should I say, fries them. That's the best joke I got on this script, so it only gets worse from here, lads. I remember a while back I streamed my Extreme Mode Plus playthrough, and the amount of weapon switching I did just to barely survive from getting 1 to 2 shotted was insane. Weapon wheels, an important aspect in these kinds of games, and sometimes it's either done really well and smooth, or cumbersome to use. One example of a weapon wheel I wasn't the biggest fan of was in Doom Eternal. It felt very clunky to use when opening it. I always felt like my mouse moved in an odd direction, and I just found myself binding weapons to my keys because it was easy and less awkward to use. This is hard to explain since it's one of those you have to feel the difference kind of things, but Cultic actually does this weapon switching better in my opinion. Moving my mouse while this thing is on doesn't have this janky feel to it. I never once felt the need to bind weapons to certain keys to make life easier. Spot on here. As mentioned before, you'll be dealing with a wide variety of enemies. For cultists, we have these guys with hatchets. Wallop them, you know. Handguns. Oh. Shotguns and SMGs. Oh my god. These guys have it all. Oh, sniper units. They have sniper units as well. You can hear them when they... There he is. Got him. We have these demonic type looking enemies, like the Brute. And this thing called the Devourer, which, I'll be honest, I didn't know the name of until recently. I just called it Larry. But holy shit, these things hurt on harder difficulties. If you're not paying attention, one bite and your health and armor disappears. I love these enemy types though, because they're not only tough, but they force you to move around due to them chasing you and forcing you to use your strongest weapons like the shotgun or Molotovs. Oh my god, Molotovs. Can I just say, use Molotovs on anything. It does so much damage, it's ridiculous. Doesn't matter the enemy type. They hate fire, so use it wisely. There's a lot of enemy types in this game that keeps you on your toes. However, personally, my favorite enemy type in the game are these things called ghosts. I personally call them tossers because they just legit toss things at you. Look, I told you it was gonna get worse from here. But seriously though, these things are creepy and they remind me of those enemy types called the Drowned from Cry of Fear. They float, they're eerie, and are unconventional compared to the other enemies you've encountered. You're so used to enemies shooting or charging at you that having an enemy that just sits there and looks at you, tossing objects while slowing you down and damaging you, is just creative and spooky. Now all of this is well and good, but how is the level design that these enemies are placed in? Well, I have a lot to talk about here, as this is personally one of my favorite aspects of this game. A simple example. In this note, it mentions how they need to build this ladder/staircase down to this dark area for specific reasons, and just by turning right and looking down after reading it, you see everything the note talks about. I love stuff like this in Souls games, and I love it here. I know this is very simple, but small things like this really add to the overall game experience for me. Another example. In the crypt, you encounter these skeleton enemies. I know they're reskins of normal cultists with their black and red vest and same weapons, but Jason bothered to have lore for them, which to me adds a little bit to this level. Apparently, the cult had issue with the infection/disease parasite thing, and this disease seeped into the bone marrow of these skeletons, thus they came to life. However, they lost control over it, which is why at the bottom of the crypt you see more of the undead and demonic type enemies, whereas when you finally reach the top and you escape, you see cultists, because they had to abandon everything, and we're just like, fuck it lads, we can't do anything about this, let's just go, goodbye. Another example I want to use is this moment right here. So up until this point, you have been fighting cult members left and right. Each area has been a shooting gallery with intense music. Now, silence. Nothing but corpses. Not a single cult member in sight. You walk across a tunnel of hanged corpses, and as you continue, you find a locked door and even more hanged bodies. You come across a key and hear this. You walk back out and all of a sudden, the bodies that were hanging still have come to life and start wandering around and attacking you, including this guy. He is called the Harvester, and these hanged bodies are called the Harvested. This ambush in particular freaked me out the first time because of the tense music, combined with the overwhelming attacks from all sides, really made this moment shine for me. And then after fighting everything in that room, and you leave, you see a blue tint of light, and I remember thinking, God damn, I'm glad to be out of there. That's what makes this small section so good, is that it changes the pace of the game. You get a moment of fighting new enemy types while adding atmosphere to the game. Changing the mood/pace of the game at different moments can really elevate the repetitive feeling that some games can suffer from. Cultic does this on a number of occasions throughout the game, and I absolutely adore it. Last moment that I wanted to share while I'm on this topic is this section right here. Now let me gush by saying I love sniper fights. I loved it in Metal Gear Solid 3 when you're fighting against the End, and I love it here. first you see a sniper shoot a cannon in front of you, signaling that this is going to be a full-blown sniper fight. So you immediately get into cover, and the first thing you do is scout for them. It's so simple, but God, I love it. When I spotted the snipers for the first time and I got a good shot at them, I felt so cool, dude. You can even hear the click of the gun before they fire, and if you pay attention, you can see the shot slightly before it hits you. It's a short but sweet section in this game. Enemy types and level design go hand in hand, and when done right, you get a lot of well-paced experiences, even though this game at its core is kill cultists that have a pulse. And not kind of game. This now leads to another important aspect of this game, the music. This whole game's soundtrack is atmospheric, and by God it's awesome. It's one of the best things in this game. Every piece of music is well crafted and timed during specific moments in the game. As mentioned earlier, sometimes the music will change or even stop and give the player silence to add a feel or mood to the game. My personal favorite tracks are In Their Sights, Return to the Asylum, and The Grave. But man, they're all so good, and I recommend you give them a listen on 3D Realm's YouTube channel. They have an entire OST track on there. Cultic knows what it is and does it really well. All the footage you see about this game was made by one guy, Jason Smith. I can't imagine the amount of work one must do to tackle all this on your own. Also, this isn't even the entire game. You have a survival mode with scoreboards, and there's even an interlude mission that was added for free and is preparing you for Chapter 2 that will be coming later, which is just awesome. If there is any critique or hope, if you will, is that for Chapter 2 to have new enemy types and weapons, change up the environments from caves, crypts, churches, or just rural areas in general to maybe some urban places. That'd be awesome. I hope Jason takes the time he needs for Chapter 2, no rush, I can wait because I know with time we can have another banger. I want to tackle more games like this, the non-AAA variety, as I truly believe they are now the backbone of the game industry and I want to focus more on them. They deserve it far more. Cultic is one of many games I adore, and I'll be covering more in the future. And I'll hope you'll see me then, so until next time, stay hydrated, lads.